We are back with part 3 of this week's reading of the Messianic Jewish Family Bible, Tree of Life version, and we have just completed chapter 35 of the book of Jeremiah. Chapter 36, Baruch reads Jeremiah's scroll. Now it happened in the 4th year of Jehoiakim, son of King Josiah of Judah, that this word came to Jeremiah from Adonai, saying, Take a megillah scroll and write in it all the words that I have spoken to you about Israel, about Judah, and about all the nations from the day I spoke to you, from the days of Josiah until today. Perhaps the house of Judah will hear all the calamity that I am planning to do to them, in order that they may turn each one from his evil way. Then I would forgive their iniquity and their sin. So Jeremiah called Baruch, son of Neriah, and Baruch wrote from Jeremiah's mouth all the words that Adonai had spoken to him into a megillah roll. Then Jeremiah commanded Baruch, saying, I am detained, I cannot go into the house of Adonai, so you go and read in the megillah which you have written from my mouth the words of Adonai in the ears of the people in the house of Adonai on a fast day. You should also read them in the ears of all Judah coming from their towns. Perhaps they will present their supplication before Adonai, and each one will turn from his wicked way. For great is the anger and fury that Adonai has pronounced against this people. So Baruch, son of Neriah, did according to all that the prophet Jeremiah commanded him, reading from the book the words of Adonai in the house of Adonai. Now it came to pass in the 5th year of Jehoiakim, son of King Josiah of Judah, in the 9th month, that they proclaimed a fast before Adonai, all the people in Jerusalem, and all the people that came from the cities of Judah to Jerusalem. Then Baruch read from the scroll the words of Jeremiah in the house of Adonai, in the chamber of Gemara, son of the scribe Shaphan, in the upper court at the entry of the new gate of the house of Adonai, in the ears of all the people. Now when Micaiah, son of Gemara, Gemariah, son of Shaphan, had heard from the scroll all the words of Adonai, he went down to the scribe's chamber of the king's palace. All the officials sat there, the scribe Elishama, Delai, son of Shemaiah, Elnathan, son of Akbor, Gemara, son of Shaphan, Zedekiah, son of Hananiah, and all the officials. Then Micaiah reported to them all the words that he had heard Baruch reading out of the scroll in the ears of the people. All the officials said, Jehudi, son of Nethaniah, son of Shelemiah, son of Cushi, to Baruch, saying, Bring in your hand the megillah which you read in the ears of the people, and come. So Baruch, son of Neriah, brought the megillah in his hand and went to them. Then they said to him, Sit down and read it in our ears. So Baruch read it in their ears. After they had heard all the words, they turned to each other in fear, then said to Baruch, We will surely report all these words to the king. They also asked Baruch, saying, Tell us now, how did you write all these words at his dictation? At his dictation? Then Baruch answered him, He pronounced all these words to me with his mouth, and I wrote them with ink into the scroll. Then the official said to Baruch, Go hide yourself, you and Jeremiah, and let no one know where you are. Then they went to the king in the courtyard after they had deposited the megillah in the chamber of the scribe Elishama. They reported all the words in the ears of the king. So the king sent Jehudi to fetch the megillah, and he brought it out of the chamber of the scribe Elishama. Jehudi read it in the ears of the king and all the officials who were standing by the king. Since it was the 9th month, the king was residing in the winter house with a fireplace burning before him. Now, as soon as Jehudi had read 3 or 4 columns, he had cut it with the scribe's knife and tossed it into the fire that was in the fireplace until the whole megillah was consumed in the fire in the fireplace. Yet neither the king nor any of his servants who heard all these words were afraid, nor tore their clothes. Moreover, Elnathan, Delai, and Gemariah entreated the king not to burn the megillah, but he would not listen to them. Then the king commanded Jeremiel, the king's son, along with Sarai, son of Azriel, and Shelemiah, son of Abdiel, to seize the scribe Baruch and the prophet Jeremiah, but Adonai hid them. Then the word of Adonai came to Jeremiah after the king had burned the Megillah with the words that Baruch had written at the mouth of Jeremiah, saying, Take yet another Megillah and write it in all the original words that were in the first roll, which Jehoiakim, the king of Judah, burned up. About King Jehoiakim of Judah, you will say, Thus says Adonai, You have burned this Megillah, saying, Why have you written in it, saying, The king of Babylon will surely come and destroy this land, and will bring an end to both man and beast from it. Therefore, thus says Adonai about King Jehoiakim, king of Judah, he will have no one to sit on the throne of David. Moreover, his dead body will be tossed out to the heat of the day and the frost of the night. I will also punish him and his offspring and his servants for their iniquity, and I will bring on them and on the inhabitants of Jerusalem and the people of Judah all the calamity that I have pronounced against them, but they did not listen. Then Jeremiah took another Megillah and gave it to the scribe Baruch, son of Neriah, who wrote in it from the mouth of Jeremiah all the words of the scroll which King Jehoiakim of Judah had burned up in the fire, and added to them many similar words. And that's the end of chapter 36. Imprisoned for the word, now Zedekiah son of Josiah reigned as king instead of Coniah son of Jehoiakim, whom King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon made king in the land of Judah. But neither he nor his servants nor the people of the land paid attention to the words of Adonai, which he spoke by the prophet Jeremiah. Yet King Zedekiah sent Jehukal son of Shelemiah and Zephaniah son of Maaseiah the priest to the prophet Jeremiah, saying, Pray now to Adonai our God for us. Now Jeremiah was coming in and going out among the people, for they had not put him in prison. Meanwhile Pharaoh's army had set out of Egypt, and when the Chaldeans besieging Jerusalem heard a report about them, they lifted the siege from Jerusalem. Then came the word of Adonai to the prophet Jeremiah, saying, Thus says Adonai, the God of Israel, Thus will you say to the king of Judah, who sent you to me to inquire of me, Now Pharaoh's army, which has come forth to help you, will return to Egypt into their own land. The Chaldeans will return and fight against this city. Then they will capture it and burn it with fire. Thus says Adonai, Do not deceive yourselves, saying the Chaldeans will surely depart from us, for they will not depart. For even if you had struck down the entire Chaldean army fighting against you, and there were left among them only wounded men, each in his tent, they would get up and burn this city down with fire. So it came to pass when the army of the Chaldeans went up from Jerusalem for fear of Pharaoh's army, that Jeremiah went out of Jerusalem to go to the land of Benjamin to claim his property there among the people. But when he was at the Benjamin gate, a captain of the guard was there, whose name was Arijah, son of Shelemiah, son of Hananiah, who arrested the prophet Jeremiah, saying, You are deserting to the Chaldeans. But Jeremiah said, That's a lie. I'm not deserting to the Chaldeans. But Arijah would not listen to him, but arrested Jeremiah and brought him to the officials. The officials were angry with Jeremiah, had him beaten, and put him in prison in the house of Jonathan the scribe, for they had made that the prison. For Jeremiah went into a vaulted cell in the dungeon pit, and Jeremiah remained there many days. Then King Zedekiah sent for him and received him in his palace secretly, and the king asked him, Is there any word from Adonai? There is, Jeremiah said, and he also said, You shall be given into the hand of the king of Babylon. Moreover, Jeremiah said to King Zedekiah, How have I sinned against you, or against your servants, or against this people, that you have put me in prison? Where now are your prophets who prophesied to you, saying, The king of Babylon will not come against you or against this land? So now please listen, my lord the king. Please let my petition come before you, and do not make me return to the house of Jonathan the scribe, so I will not die there. Then Zedekiah the king gave a command, and they committed Jeremiah into the courtyard of the guard. They gave him a loaf of bread from the baker's street until all the bread in the city was spent. So Jeremiah stayed in the guard's courtyard in a miry cistern pit. This is now chapter 38. Now Shephatiah, son of Matan, Gedaliah, son of Pashur, Jokol, son of Shelemiah, and Pashur, son of Malchiah, heard the words that Jeremiah spoke to all the people, saying, Thus says Adonai, he that remains in the city will die by the sword, by famine, and by plague, but anyone who goes out to the Chaldeans will live. So he will keep his life like the spoils of war, and he will live. Thus says Adonai, the city will surely be given into the hand of the army of the king of Babylon, and he will capture it. Then the official said to the king, This man should now be put to death, since he demoralizes the men of war remaining in this city, as well as all the people, by speaking such words to them. For this man is not seeking the shalom of this people, but calamity. Then King Zedekiah said, Here he is in your hand. The king cannot do anything against you. So they took Jeremiah and cast him into the cistern pit of Malchiah, the king's son, which was in the courtyard of the guard, lowering Jeremiah down with ropes. Now in the pit there was no water, but only mud, and Jeremiah sank into the mud. Now Ebed-melech, an Ethiopian official in the king's palace, heard that they had put Jeremiah in the pit. While the king was sitting in the Benjamin gate, Ebed-melech went out from the king's palace and spoke to the king, saying, My lord the king, these men have done evil in all that they have done to Jeremiah the prophet, whom they cast into the pit. He is likely to die right where he is from hunger, for there is no more bread in the city. Then the king commanded Ebed-melech the Ethiopian, saying, Take 30 men from here with you, and bring the prophet Jeremiah up out of the cistern before he dies. So Ebed-melech took the men with him and went into the king's palace under the storehouse. From there he took worn-out clothes and worn-out rags and lowered them by ropes into the cistern pit to Jeremiah. And Ebed-melech the Ethiopian said to Jeremiah, Now put these worn-out clothes and rags under your armpits, under the ropes. Jeremiah did so. Then they pulled Jeremiah up with the ropes and lifted him up out of the pit. But Jeremiah remained in the courtyard of the guard. Then Zedekiah the king sent for the prophet Jeremiah and received him at the third entrance of the house of Adonai. The king said to Jeremiah, I am going to ask you something. Hide nothing from me. Jeremiah said to Zedekiah, If I tell you, won't you surely put me to death? Besides, if I give you counsel, you won't listen to me. So Zedekiah the king swore secretly to Jeremiah, saying, As Adonai lives, that gave us life, I will not put you to death, nor will I give you into the hand of these men seeking your life. Then Jeremiah said to Zedekiah, Thus says Adonai Elohim Sabaoth, the God of Israel, if you will go out to the officers of the king of Babylon, then your soul will live. This city will not be burned with fire, and you and your household will survive. But if you do not go out to the officers of the king of Babylon, then this city will be handed over to the Chaldeans. They will burn it with fire, and you will not escape out of their hand. Zedekiah the king said to Jeremiah, I am afraid of the Judeans who have deserted to the Chaldeans, lest they hand me over to them and they abuse me. But Jeremiah said, They will not hand you over. Please obey the voice of Adonai in what I am speaking to you, so it will go well for you and your soul will live. But if you keep refusing to go out, this is the word that Adonai has shown me. Soon all the women who are left in the palace of the king of Judah will be brought out to the officers of the king of Babylon, and those women will say, Your close friends have misled you and prevailed over you. Your feet are sunk in the mire, and they deserted you. Then they will bring out all your wives and your children to the Chaldeans, and you shall not escape out of their hand, but you shall be seized by the hand of the king of Babylon, and this city will be burned down with fire. Then said Zedekiah to Jeremiah, Let no one know of these words, and you will not die. But if the officials hear that I have talked with you, and they come to you and say to you, Tell us now what you have said to the king, hide nothing from us, and we will not put you to death. And what did the king say to you? Then you will tell them, I was presenting my position before the king, not to make my return to Jonathan's house to die there. When all the officials came to Jeremiah and questioned him, he told them with just these words that the king had commanded, so they stopped speaking with him, since the matter was not overheard. Then Jeremiah stayed in the guard's courtyard until the day that Jerusalem was captured. And that's the end of chapter 38. Chapter 39, Judgment on Zedekiah and Jerusalem. Now when Jerusalem was captured in the 9th year of King Zedekiah of Judah, in the 10th month, King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon and all his army advanced against Jerusalem and besieged it. On the 9th day of the 4th month of the 11th year of Zedekiah, the city wall was broken through. Then all the officials of the king of Babylon came in and sat in the middle gate. Nergal-Sarezer, Semagar-Nebo, Sarzakim the Rab-Saris, Nergal-Sarezer the Rab-Mag, and all the rest of the officials of Babylon's king. Now when King Zedekiah of Judah and all the men of war saw them, they fled. They went out of the city at night by way of the king's garden, through the gate between the two walls, heading out towards the way of Arabah. But the Chaldean army pursued them and overtook Zedekiah in the plains of Jericho. When they captured him, they brought him up to King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon at Riblah, in the land of Hamath, where he passed judgment on him. The king of Babylon slew the sons of Zedekiah in Riblah before his eyes. Moreover, the king of Babylon slew all the nobles of Judah. Then he blinded Zedekiah's eyes, and he bound him in shackles to carry him off to Babylon. Then the Chaldeans burned the king's palace and the houses of the people with fire, and broke down the walls of Jerusalem. Neb- Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, carried away into exile the rest of the people, those who remained in the city, and also the deserters who had defected to him, and the rest of the people remaining. But Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, left some of the poorest of the people who had nothing behind in the land of Judah, and gave them vineyards and fields in that day. Vindication of Jeremiah. Now King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon gave orders about Jeremiah to Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, saying, "Take him and look after him, and do no harm to him. Rather, do to him just as he tells you." So Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, sent word. So Nebuzaradan, the Rabsaris, Nergal-Sarezer, and the Rabmag, and all the chief officers of the king of Babylon sent and brought Jeremiah out of the guard's courtyard, and gave him to Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, son of Shaphan, to take him home. So he dwelt among the people. Now the word of Adonai came to Jeremiah while he was shut up in the guard's courtyard, saying, "Go speak to Ebed-melech the Ethiopian, saying, Thus says Adonai Sabaoth, the God of Israel, Listen, I will bring about my words on this city for evil and not for good. They will happen before you in that day, but I will deliver you in that day. It is a declaration of Adonai. And you will not be given into the hand of the men whom you dread, for I will surely rescue you. So you will not fall by the sword, but you will keep your life as spoils, because you put your trust in me. It is a declaration of Adonai." Chapter 40. Jeremiah returns to Judah. The word which came to Jeremiah from Adonai after Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, had released him from Ramah. He had taken him bound in chains among all the captives of Jerusalem and Judah who were being exiled to Babylon. Now the captain of the guard had taken Jeremiah and said to him, "Adonai, your God, pronounced this evil against this place, and Adonai brought it about and did just as he said. Because you have sinned against Adonai and have not listened to his voice, this thing has happened to you. But now behold, I am freeing you this day from the chains that are on your hand. If it is good in your eyes to come with me to Babylon, come, and I will look after you. But if it is evil in your eyes to come with me to Babylon, stop. Look, the whole land is before you. Wherever it seems good and right to you to go, there go." But he would not turn back. "Go back to Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, son of Shaphan, whom the king of Babylon has made governor over the cities of Judah, and dwell with him among the people, or go anywhere it seems right in your eyes to go." Then the captain of the guard gave him a ration and a gift, and let him go. So Jeremiah went to the son of Ahikam to Mizpah, and dwelt with him among the people that were left in the land. Gedaliah appointed governor. Now all the commanders of the forces that were in the field, they and their men, heard that the king of Babylon had appointed Gedaliah son of Ahikam over the land and had put him in charge of the men and women and children of the poorest of the land who were not carried away captive to Babylon. So they came to Gedaliah at Mizpah, including Ishmael son of Nethaniah, Jonathan and Jonathan's sons of Kareah, Seraiah son of Tanhumeth, the sons of Ephi, the Netophathite, and Jazaniah son of Makathite, they and their men. Then Gedaliah son of Ahikam, son of Shaphan, swore to them and their men, saying, do not be afraid to serve the Chaldeans. Stay in the land and serve the king of Babylon, and it will go well for you. As for me, look, I will dwell at Mizpah to stand before the Chaldeans who come to us. But as for you, gather wine, summer fruit, and oil, and put them in your jars, and dwell in your cities that you have taken over. Also, when all the Jews who were in Moab, among Ammon's children, in Edom, and in all the countries, heard that the king of Babylon had left a remnant of Judah, and that he had appointed over them Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, son of Shaphan, they all then all the Jews returned out of all the places where they had been driven, and came back to the land of Judah, to Gedaliah at Mizpah, and gathered wine and summer fruit in great abundance. Then Jonathan son of Kareah, and all the commanders of the forces that were in the field came to Gedaliah to Mizpah, and said to him, are you aware that Baalis, the king of Ammon's children, has sent Ishmael son of Nethaniah to take your life? But Gedaliah son of Ahikam did not believe them. Then Jonathan son of Kareah spoke privately to Gedaliah at Mizpah, saying, let me go now, and I will slay Ishmael son of Nethaniah, and no one will know it. Why should he take your life, so that all the Jews that are gathered to you would be scattered, and the remnant of Judah perish? But Gedaliah son of Ahikam said to Jonathan son of Kareah, don't do this thing, for what you were saying about Ishmael is a lie. And that's the end of chapter 40. So there is quite a lot of activity going on here, and Gedaliah's life is being threatened now, but he's not believing it. I'm going to pause this and come back with the next part.